So excited this morning to talk with one of the greatest actors in American film history. Two-time Oscar winner for Best Actor, Dustin Hoffman is joining us on Studio 10 this morning. Dustin, so great to have you on the show. Thanks for doing this.
Joe, thanks for having me. I'm serious about that, so I can unabashedly plug this film that I directed, because I do believe in it.
Well, we're going to get to all that in just one second, but first I wanted to tell you a little story, Dustin. A couple weeks ago, I couldn't get to sleep. It was midnight, and remember, I host the morning show. Your 1976 film, Marathon Man, came on, and I had to watch the entire thing until 3 in the morning. I couldn't go to sleep. For those who haven't seen it, I think the moral, Dustin, was don't mess with Nazis.
And don't go to the dentist.
And don't go to the dentist. Well, that was a great film. You've done so many great works. This time, you're getting behind the camera for this film, Quartet. Tell us a little bit about Quartet, Dustin.
Well, they're former opera singers and musicians that live in a retirement home, but they refuse to retire, and they're still, sexually charged. They still have great passion for their work, and within it is a love story between Maggie Smith and Tom Courtenay, who had married for a very, very short time, 40 years prior to meeting each other in this retirement home, and their love for each other is rekindled. And what surrounds it is a lot of humor, because it's a comedy, and music, and a sexiness, which apparently is a very strong component of opera singers that few people know, and that's one of the things that attracted me to it.
Well, and you did a fantastic job directing it, because it did pick up a Golden Globe nomination for Best Picture. What inspired you to get behind the camera for this film? What made you say, I want to take a break from acting and try this out?
I think I have to credit my wife. I mean, we've been together about 35 years, and I've been wanting to direct for that length of time. And finally, when I read this script, I said, I wouldn't mind directing this. She literally pushed me off the side of the cliff, because if not, I would have found an excuse not to do it. And I'm so sorry that it took this long.
Well,
But on the other hand, if the film had not done well, I would have left my wife by now. But
well, good to know. Thanks for that inside scoop into your personal relationship, Dustin. Anything you would have done differently as a first-time director looking back, or are you completely happy with how it turned out?
That's a good question. Well, there's always things that I can't watch films that I've acted in, because you always see something that you wish you would have done differently. I think the main thing I would have done differently is tried to get a little more money, because it's a low-budget film, and you have to go at a very quick pace. And unfortunately, these people who are in their 70s and 80s and 90s were able to keep up the pace. But I wouldn't have minded having another week, and that's the main thing. I think it's a tough schedule when you're shooting a film, because you always have to get more done during the day than is possible, and yet we did.
IMDb has you listing as appearing in more than 70 films. Are there any that stand out in your mind, or any that kind of were a pivotal moment for you? I'm sure there are some, but when you look back on your kind of film history, what stands out to you? What do you most want to be remembered for?
The hits.
The hits, not the ones that weren't good? Yeah, that's good. It's always good to stand out for those. Well, you know what? You mentioned those actors that you worked with in their 70s, 80s, and 90s, and keeping up the pace. And you are definitely keeping up the pace as well, continuing to work. What drives you at this point, and what are we going to see next from Dustin Hoffman? Are you going to direct again, or are we going to see you on the screen again?
Well, there's two parts to your question. What drives me is testosterone, but we won't get into that. And yes, I'd love to direct, and I'd love to maybe be in the picture that I direct next time.
Testosterone drives you, a very scientific and biological response. I appreciate that. Well, listen, Dustin, I was really looking forward to this interview. It's a great opportunity for me to get to speak to you. I've really enjoyed it, and thank you so much for joining us here on Studio 10.
Thank you for liking Quartet, and thanks for having me.